Welcome to season 2 of Rabbit Holes with Aaron, where we haven't made any drastic changes, but we believe we get better with time. So enjoy the wide constellation of guests that I have on this show. Enjoy our conversations. Hopefully, you get some nuggets and you can learn and grow and become a better person. Thanks for listening. Welcome to Rabbit Holes with Aaron. I'm Aaron, and today with me I have Nate, who I know because I was doing a pottery class for veterans at a place called Veteran Point, and I was preparing to use the whiteboard to explain all the intricacies of hand building techniques with pottery. And then he shows up and he's absolutely blind. And I had to adapt. And he made an ashtray.
Yeah.
So welcome, Nate. Thank you for
Thank
joining me
you very
today.
much.
So I always start my podcast with a question. So what is something that is new and exciting in your life right now?
Probably the biggest thing that's new and exciting in my life is me and my wife just purchased a house, place we're currently at the moment doing this
Yay.
podcast. So,
Yeah, we're doing a podcast in your new house. And you're a new guest.
yes.
Been chasing you for a while, but I
Yep.
guess I finally caught you.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're in your guitar room, and I can see there's more guitars here than
That's
humans.
correct.
So,
Still need to get them hung on the wall, but that's, project for later.
yeah. Wow, that'll look nice. So, what else? Man, you're a man of mystery. You're a man of mystery, man of adventure. You're everywhere and nowhere. I don't know. I was just going with random stuff, but you've
Right.
been surfing, you've been on riding bulls, you've been all over the place. Give me what else you've been doing. I forget all the things.
Those are the big ones. Flown a plane, uh, takeoff and landed. Let's see, go snow skiing a lot. Mountain climbed. Climbed. It was at least 75 foot. It might have been taller than that. I think 175 foot. Granite rock face.
Wow.
Um, and that was all since losing my leg and my eyesight.
Wow. To me, that's inspirational. And I hang out with you all the time. Well, at least once a month. We have
Yeah.
a cigar, we hang out, we tell tales, we remember stories from our Marine Corps days and I remember a lot of your stories. Are there any of your stories you feel like you'd like to share with our audience of people out there?
Yeah, I could share any of them. Let's see. I got into surfing quite a few years ago. I ended up moving down here to Texas in 2018. I came down originally for the Adaptive Training Foundation, or ATF for short. I came for class 9 in 2017, and it's a place. It's a physical fitness gym for adaptive athletes.
Okay.
Athletes that have lost limbs, have Parkinson's disease or muscular dystrophy, things like that. Even brain injuries, strokes, things like that, where they're now impaired
Mm-hmm.
physically, and you learn how to adapt exercise so you can, still work those same muscle groups.
Okay.
Like me, for example, I'm missing my right leg above the knee. Um, it's hard for me to do squats with one leg. I mean, that's just a pistol. Uh, but just learn how to work those muscles in my right leg
Mm-hmm.
using different methods, different exercises versus using a squat.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So they basically, yeah, it definitely makes sense. They adapt like normal exercises that everybody might know. They adapt it to you,
Yes.
and you're blind and you're missing a leg, and they adapt it to meet your needs and keep you in shape.
Yep. And
And
I was their first visually impaired athlete to go through the program. They've had numerous visually impaired athletes go through since. So I was kind of a test dummy for them as well. They'd try and my trainers would, tell me how to do something, and I'm like, well, I don't know I can't see what you're doing.
right.
So you'll have to physically show me,
Hmm.
put my hands on it, and physically show me what to do, and they would do it, and it worked. And they've
Wow.
had numerous, like I said, numerous visually impaired veterans and non-veterans come through the program. It's been pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so glad that that's out there. And I'm so glad that's out there for all of the veterans like yourself. And so many have come back wounded and crippled from war, and it gives them some hope and gives them a way to
Yes,
work out. And even for a normal, relatively middle-aged guy like myself, I find a lot of stress relief, a lot of joy,
absolutely.
a lot of achievement, and all the good feelings that come along with that from working out. And so, yeah, everybody should get a little bit of that.
Absolutely. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and their website is theadaptivetrainingfoundation.org. If anyone's interested out there, it's an amazing program. Even if you're not an adaptive athlete, and you're an able-bodied person and want to get involved, they're always looking for volunteers, volunteer trainers, and things like that to help out.
Yeah, definitely. Read down in the description of the blog, and I mean of this podcast, and you will see a link for that too. That you can click on if you want to volunteer, or maybe if you need some support and you need to utilize it as a disabled person. Um, it strikes me time and time again, Nate, that like how much you do with the limits that you have right now, and of course, we all look back on our younger, unlimited
Mm-hmm.
selves, and we're like,
Yeah,
I wish you'd have done some of this, and we can look around at others too, but really, it's ourselves that we can kind of
yeah.
you know we can get onto and say, hey, buddy, I'm sorry you were a slacker, but I'm gonna pick up your slack now, whatever age I am.
Well, one thing I found that it's only myself that limits me.
Okay.
I'm not going to let anybody else limit what I can and can't do.
Okay.
If I think I can do something, I'm going to go out there and do it. Or if I want to go do something, I'm going to go out there and do it. I might have to do it a different way than somebody else has to do it, but by God, I'm going to go out there and do it and try
Yeah.
anyway. Um, that's how I got to bull riding. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I'd become a bull rider, but right
Yeah.
now I've ridden 8 bulls, I believe. Um, I think the longest I've stayed on is 5.5 to 6 seconds. It's not too bad for a one-legged blind guy, I think.
Wow.
But there's nothing like riding a bull. It's amazing. It's such an adrenaline rush. Um, and it's funny how this story kind of came about. Uh, Ever since my accident and losing my leg and my eyesight, and we can get into sharing about that
Sure.
in a little bit. But I always wanted to ride a bull.
Hmm.
Never thought about it before. I mean, I always thought it'd be cool, but never thought it actually ever happened. It was just like a pipe dream. I'm like, oh, it's never going to happen. It'd be cool if it ever did, but who's going to let me ride a bull? And even before I lost my leg and my eyesight, you know, I just thought it'd be cool to ride a bull.
Yeah.
I mean, never thought I would. But I come home one day and I get ready to sit down. My wife said, "Yeah, I'm not going to tell you this about this." I'm like, "Well, you kind of have to now. Now,
Yeah.
now I'm interested." And uh, my wife Sammy is just amazing. And she said, "Well, there's this Bible bull riding clinic up in Decatur, Texas." And instantly, my ears perked up, because I heard bull riding. Um, and kind of how I decided I wanted to start bull riding was the song "Live Like You Were Dying" by Tim McGraw. You
Wow,
know,
what a great song.
it
Yeah.
is. Uh, I've been skydiving, Rocky Mountain climbing, went 2.7 seconds on a full main Fu Manchu.
Yeah.
I knew that's a bull, you know, and I'm like, well, I've been Rocky Mountain climbing, I've been skydiving, done a lot of other stuff, but haven't ridden a bull yet. I want to ride a bull. Well, fast forward, even before I ended up sitting down with her and she told me about this Bible bull riding clinic. Uh, one of her bosses at or supervisors at work, his son was graduating from high school a few years ago, and he wanted a mechanical bull at his graduation party,
Yeah.
and he invited us to it, and so I got to ride a mechanical bull, um, and that was cool. Because I always wanted to ride a mechanical bull, just never come across one. Uh, but it's not the same thing. You know, I get bucked off finally. You know, when it's about done, and I just fall on a big old inflated
Yeah.
air pad. You know, so it's not the same thing. It's safe, but it's just not the same. Um, anyway, fast forward. So my wife told me about this Bible bull riding clinic, and I'm like, babe, I have to do that. She's like,
Yeah.
no, you don't. I'm like, yeah, I do. That's on my bucket list. I might never get another chance to ride a bull. It's on my bucket list. I have to. And she relented, and she's like, well, just promise me you'll come back in the same shape as when you left. I'm like, well, I'll try. I'll do my best. To
Yeah.
come back with no broken bones and stuff. But riding a bull, it happens. Um, so I went up to Decatur, Texas, to this Bible bull riding clinic, and they taught us how to ride bulls. Had some mock-ups for us to ride, and some 55-gallon drums on springs, on its side, so we could bounce back and forth and
Okay.
rock back and forth and kind of
Yeah.
get the movements um, and in between that, we're studying the Bible and digging deep into the Bible and talking about the armor of God and it was really good and
Okay.
talking and kind of relating the equipment we use as bull riders to the armor of God because there's equipment you have to use in bull riding. You've got your glove, you got your strap that holds you onto the bull. You got to wrap it, around your hand the correct way, and you're wearing a flak jacket. You don't want to get gored by by a bull.
Right.
And you're wearing a helmet for sure. Um, safety first. And I know, back in the day they didn't used to wear all that stuff, but there's been a lot of injuries from that.
Yeah.
But Pastor Jeff Tackett up at Bible or at uh, the Bible bull riding clinic in up in Decatur, Texas, the Cowboy church up there. Uh, he was very helpful, and we were. I just loved it. Finally got on a bull. Well, throughout the week we rode bulls throughout the week, and then it culminated with a rodeo at the end of the week. It was a 4-day clinic, so it
Okay.
was like a Wednesday through Saturday. So Saturday was the rodeo, and we all got to ride 2 bulls
Oh wow.
in the rodeo, and it was pretty epic. Um, like I said, uh, one of my rides was I think it was one of the rides on the rodeo at the rodeo where it was my longest. Um, and it was around 5.5 seconds, 5.5 to 6. But there was a couple that as soon as that gate came open, he bucked me right off.
Huh.
And I hit the deck pretty dang hard. Thought I broke my collarbone. Didn't end up breaking it. My battle buddy, he Noah, he he broke his collarbone. There was a couple busted legs. Um, second time I rode, he bucked me off. The bull I rode was Redman. He bucked me off and spun on me, and hooked my left shin with his horn and left a pretty good egg on
Oh
my
yeah.
knot, a big old knot on my shin for quite a while. It was there for quite a while, and it was pretty bruised. But yeah, there was nothing like riding a bull,
Mm.
and quite honestly, I had no fear. Um, it was exciting, that part, the adrenaline rush that was getting ready to come. I knew it was coming, so that part, I was a little hesitant on. I don't know what to expect, especially the first time out. But I knew Jesus was on the back of that bull riding with me,
Mm.
and I knew nothing was going to happen to me. And not that I wasn't going to get hurt seriously. I knew Jesus was with me
Okay.
and protecting me.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you sharing that story with us.
Yeah,
I was thinking about something while you're talking. Like, I wonder if any, you were able to see for much of your life, and now you're not able to see.
yeah.
And I'm just wondering if eyes make us more scared. If being able to see makes me more scared than if I was blind.
I
Like, because I
think
can see people getting hurt, or maybe I can see it going the wrong way. What do you
I
think? Go
think
ahead.
in some instances, yes. Um, I know the the three times I've gone skydiving. The first time I was so excited to go, and this was right after my accident. My accident was just a little over 10 years ago. It happened December 9th, 2015, and uh, September of 16, September 17th. It was actually on my 35th birthday. Um, I was with an organization called Sheepdog Impact Assistance, and they take veterans and help them get off the couch. Because a lot of veterans will um, turn to drugs and alcohol when they get out of the service. Because they lose their place.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do, and they uh, so we went down to Arkansas for a skydive, and we jumped at 10,000 feet, and uh, it was amazing. I loved it. Got to pull the chute, fly it around a little bit. Well, the very next week, I had already planned on going skydiving with um, ended up being one of my good friends that I used to work with on the police department.
Hmm.
Um, one of my nurses that uh, I had in the hospital that became good friends with my ex-wife, and then another gal that I used to CrossFit with, and then she became a police officer too, with Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, and we all went skydiving. We jumped at 15,000 feet. It's a lot higher. It was a lot bigger plane. There was a ton of us in the plane. The first plane, it was just a little Cessna that barely fit four of us.
Yeah.
There was no seats in it, of course. Um, and so we jumped a lot higher. We were the first ones out, and we're falling, enjoying the free fall, and I'm expecting the pull because it's a pretty hard pull. I had bruises on my shoulders from the harnesses,
Yeah.
um, and the pull's not coming, not
Oh
coming.
no.
So I'm thinking in my head, well, I guess if it doesn't happen, I guess I'm not going to feel it too much.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, I wasn't really worried, but maybe slightly. Not really for me because I didn't really care.
Right.
Um, but then finally it pulled. I didn't get to pull it, and I got to fly it around a little bit. And then once we landed, I did not jump with my prosthetic leg that second time. The first time I did jump with my prosthetic. Uh, Funny story, and it was strapped around me, but when I pulled the chute, it's a big pull. You're falling at terminal velocity, and then
Yeah,
you're
you're
slowing
jerked
down real
back.
quick, really
Yeah.
fast. So I fell down because I had a suction socket on my leg. So it's my prosthetic is just held on by suction. So I'm feeling down my thigh where my socket is. It's supposed to be, and it's not there. I know my leg's still on, but I go down, and it's the last maybe 3-4 inches of my stump.
Mhm.
So I grab my leg and jam it back on. But anyway, that second time, I didn't jump with my leg. I didn't want to possibly lose my prosthetic,
Yeah.
because I've heard plenty of stories of that happening.
Okay.
And in fact, there was a guy that I read about a while back that lost his skydiving,
Mm.
and uh, ended up finding it. Somebody found it, and they were able to track the serial number, and they got his leg back to him.
Wow.
But it was like over a year and a half
Oh
or
my
something
goodness.
like that
Yeah.
before he got his old prosthetic back. But anyway, the so that second time I didn't get to pull it. We get down to the base, or down to the ground, and the guy I was jumping with, uh, he was gathering up the parachute and everything, and he my ex was coming out to the field with my walker, so I could walk back, and he's like, "No, screw that walker." He's like, "Just get on my back." So he picks me up, and I just get on his back, and while he's pulling me up from the ground, he's like, "Yeah, I didn't want to tell you this while we was up there, but our primary chute didn't open. That's what took so long." I'm like, "Oh crap!" He's like, "Yeah, that's what took so long. That we had to use our backup parachute." So I was like, "Wow, I'm glad you didn't tell me that up there. I probably would have messed my pants." He's like, "Yeah, I'm glad I didn't tell you that up there."
Yeah.
And then
Wow.
yeah, so it was pretty exciting.
So you think skydiving was possible because not you weren't well, because I asked you like if you think being blind gave you more courage
Oh
because
yeah.
we can see and that makes us scared of what could happen
Um.
sometime.
Yeah. I think. I mean, that could go either way. I think, especially
Okay.
with skydiving. I mean, I've always wanted to skydive, and I plan on doing it again some more. Um, it's just a blast, and I highly recommend it to anybody out there that's on the fence about it, or even that's scared of it. Do it. It's amazing. Uh, it's not only the views are amazing, and they were just described to me mostly. I mean, I've been up in planes and stuff before, seen the fantastic views from way up in the air, from 10,000 feet
Yeah.
or higher. It's fantastic, but the feeling of falling through the air and doing flips and twists, and it's just so exhilarating and great. But
Yeah.
So I don't think that that's necessarily uh, made it easier for me being blind, because I would have done it
Okay.
either way.
Okay.
I've always planned on it going. Um, but I'd say for some people, maybe it would uh, cause them to not have as much fear, because they can't see it. But it
Yeah.
might cause people more fear, because they can't see it too.
That's true.
So it could really go either way. It just depends on the person.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I can see that for sure. Wow. So many good
Yeah.
stories. Yeah. I remember when we did that pottery class, that first time I met you, you were so determined to make an ashtray for your cigars.
Yep.
And actually, that's what started us having cigars.
Absolutely.
And I think, yeah, we pretty much stuck to, unless I was on vacation driving around the world, we stuck to about once a month. We
Yep.
meet and have a cigar and talk about life. And you
Absolutely.
tell me all your adventures, and I tell you all my adventures. And
And I look forward to having another stogie with you when
I
we're done
know,
with the podcast.
yeah, that's how we're celebrating doing this
That's
podcast.
right.
Afterwards, we're gonna go on the back porch and have a cigar together. Which I guess maybe I should share a story too. You guys wanted to get to know me a little bit better, and I probably already told this story to Nate. But the reason I'm into cigars is because when I was deployed to to Iraq twice and Afghanistan once, there's so many ways to go with this story, but I'm just going to tell this part of the story. So the chaplain play a key role over there. They'll play some movies, anything that kind of gets your mind off of what's going on.
Yeah.
You go talk to them if your kids are causing problems for your wife or whatever, and they listen, they help you out. This particular chaplain had a cigar movie night, and he had all these cigars sitting on this long portable table. And I remember the movie we were going to watch. It was Wild Hogs with what's his name?
Tim Allen.
Tim Allen, yeah, and a whole cast of comedy guys. And we were sitting there, and I'm smoking cigars. First time I ever smoked a cigar. And the chaplain said it was okay, so so I just went with it. I think I had 4 cigars that night in the span of 2 hours.
Oh wow!
You're sitting down.
Yeah.
You don't know how you're getting affected. I'm drinking water and smoking cigars until I got up to go home, and then I was like, "This is the worst I have ever felt in my entire life." Now, bear in mind, I don't think I didn't drink very much. I'd never been drunk in my life at that point, surprisingly, as a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps. But
that is surprising.
Yeah, right. There you go. That's its own story. That's a story that Nate wants to hear about. But yeah, so we had cigars and we watched a movie, and I had too many, but I liked the feeling of blowing out smoke, and I liked the little buzz it gave me. And so then that became a thing for me. And so on deployments, it eventually became in Afghanistan a way to track time, because you get to marking days off the calendar, and it's like, oh, I've got 230 days left. Yay. Now 229. It's just such a big number that you might as well say never or forever.
Absolutely.
And so I started tracking time in a way that sounded nice, and that was full moons. So me and another Gunny would have cigars at the full moon in this gazebo way out in the desert. And it was a way, and you could move quickly from, I had 6 full moons. Well, there's a full moon right there. Now I got 5 more left, and that's 5 months or 6 months, the length of a deployment for Marines. And so that was the way I tracked time. And that's the way kind of makes you sit still and just share space with somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I fell in love with it at that point, and that's why it's still a part of my life. What do you think of that story?
That's a good one. I like it.
Yeah.
It's a good reason to start smoking cigars.
Well, and if you hadn't figured it out yet, podcast audience, I like to talk. So
but so do I. So it's going to be interesting.
There we go. And so I could probably, I guess you could see it as I trap another human being with me with a cigar for an hour. And I don't always talk the whole time. I listen, and it's good conversation.
Which is fair. He does stop and listen sometimes.
There we go. Thank you, Nate.
Not all the time, but most of the time he's pretty good about it.
I get going, and it's like I heard in that Abraham Lincoln movie. He says, I knew a preacher one time that he would get to preaching. He'd say, get too lazy to stop. And that's kind of where I'm at. I just get to talking and talking and talking and making points and connecting dots. Yep. And, oh, wow. Oh, yeah, there's another human being here. Let me stop for a second and let them talk, and I'll breathe. And so, that's the evolution that's where the podcast came from. Way back in the deserts of Afghanistan in 2010, where I was having cigars and having talks. And now we're just having to talk, have a cigar after. It's a nice story.
2010?
I was there in 2010 in Afghanistan. Yep. So I know we've got, we're going to have to just shut this off without telling all our stories, I imagine, because I know you got a big story to tell about how you ended up to be this, rootin' tootin' cowboy, mean at if you're an adventure or a bull, you're stubborn, you're mean, you're going to hold on, you're not going to give up, you're going to squeeze all the life out of it as you can. That's what it seems like in your life right now. So tell us another story. Tell us a story, maybe if you want, of how you became blind and lost your leg, and
Yeah, absolutely.
that's a good one. I love
So,
that one.
so enlisted in the Marine Corps in late '02. In fact, I'm almost positive it was on the Marine Corps birthday on November 10th. I could be wrong on that, but I have a feeling it was. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Um, Ended up going into the delayed entry program, leaving for boot camp in March of '03 because I wanted to be home for my first anniversary because I knew I'd be gone at times, war or, just deployments, whatever. So that first anniversary was important for me to be home. Uh, so then I left for boot camp in uh, March of '03, and uh, I was going to be I wanted to be a machine gunner or a grunt, but I didn't know if I would stay in. Uh, and I wanted a job that I could use on the civilian side if I decide to get out or when I decide to get out. Uh, so I decided to be an armorer, which the MOS code for that is the 2111. So I get to school up in Aberdeen, Maryland, or APG. It's a army base that they school Army, Marines, and Air Force in different schools. Um, and I get to school and they're calling out the different MOS codes for pickup, and they're not calling my name when they call out the 2111s. So I call up my recruiter. Say, what's the deal? Gunny, because he had just been promoted to Gunny,
Okay.
and was a staff sergeant before when I first started talking with him. Staff Sergeant Week. Um, and he's like, well, give me a day to figure it out, and I'll call you back tomorrow. So he calls me back the next day and said, well, there's a reserve unit that needed an armorer. So they sent an E4 corporal, and he took my spot. I said, all right, Johnny, what's my options? He's like, well, you can wait for the next class to pick up. I'm like, when is that? He's like, it'll be about 3.5 months. I said, yeah, no way to that. I'll be on every working party known to man. Forget that. What else you got? He's like, well, there's a 2161. I said, well, what's that? He's like, it looks like you work with metal on lathes and mills, make things out of metal. And I said, when do they pick up? And he said, tomorrow. I said, sign me up. It sounded really interesting to me
Yeah.
and sounded like a skill I could use on the civilian side. So I picked up that next class that next day, and I fell in love with it. I absolutely fell in love with the trade. Of course, it was a lot of math. Um, and I just loved working with my hands, making things out of metal, uh, spinning on a lathe, using a mill, uh, which is similar to like a drill press, but it's got 3 axes instead of just the one. Um,
Yeah.
that goes up and down. The table moves forward and backwards and side to side, and then the quill moves up and down.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Um,
Yeah.
so I went to school. Ended up doing one deployment in Fallujah, Iraq in '05 and '06. Um, Knew I might come back missing parts or not come back at all. I had a few close calls for sure. Um, our unit, Combat Logistics Battalion 8, we had one KIA while we were there, and it's kind of a story. His name is Lance Corporal Marcato, uh, and honestly, I didn't like him too much. He was just kind of a prick. And but anyway, they needed more people on a convoy, and so I was volunteered for a convoy. Get up to the company office. Well, he beat me by 1 step. He was 1 step in front of me. He was on the convoy, and they got hit, and he ended up surpassing to to his wounds and stuff.
Mm.
So we had a service out there for him, which was very touching, and it was very surreal. But like I said, I came back relatively in one piece. Definitely some PTSD and whatnot, and some injuries, but nothing, no Purple Hearts or nothing. Didn't get shot or blown up.
Mm.
Um, just dumb stuff, lifting stuff too heavy or whatever. Um, but anyway, then I get out of the Marine Corps in '07, um, and I become a machinist. Had a job before I even got home from Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
Okay.
Pretty much. He was just waiting for me to get home to interview me in person. Had a job. Then, we'll fast forward after I was a machinist for quite a few years and loved it, but I always wanted to be a cop. Always wanted to be a police
Mm.
officer. Ever since I can remember. I don't know why. I just always wanted to be a cop.
Okay.
And I think it was just helping people. I love helping people. And that's one of the greatest things the greatest accomplishments I think we did when I was in Iraq. 'Cause I think a lot of the war was it was bogus. But the one thing that was really cool that we helped with, we got to help women vote for the first time ever.
Mm.
We were there for getting to help women vote for the first time, and
Okay.
little girls got to go to school for the first time ever, and we got to be a part of that. And
Wow.
that's a huge difference. I mean, that's
Yeah.
totally changing somebody's life. So I finally became a cop with Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, and I guess it was 2011 was when I went through the police academy, I believe. Uh, yeah, because I got my commission in 2012 uh, as an officer. Um, we all have with Kansas City. You all have to do. Everybody has to do 3 years in patrol before going on to a specialized unit, whether it's a detective or SWAT team or traffic, whatever. And my goal was to get to our helicopter unit fly.
Oh, okay.
As I was getting ready to get out of the Army or out of the Marine Corps, I uh, briefly discussed going and switching over to the Army and becoming a warrant officer so I could fly helicopters.
Okay.
I passed the flight physical and everything, but last minute, I couldn't do it. My pride got the best of me. Couldn't go from being the best, being the Marine, being the best down to not being the best anymore.
Hoorah.
So I axed that plan. But anyway, I was planning on getting on the helicopter unit on the police department and flying, but I was just waiting for somebody to leave. So waiting for a spot to open up.
Yeah.
But it was such a cake gig, nobody liked leaving. They would either retire out. I mean, it was very rare for them to leave the helicopter,
Mm.
uh, unless it was a retirement. Uh, so I was just waiting for a spot to open up, and that's when I had my motorcycle accident. Um, I was out with a buddy of mine named Ryan. I was in the police academy with him. He was a paramedic for Kansas City Fire, um, and he had gotten the city of Grandview, which is the city just south of Kansas City, to put him through the regional police academy to become a cop in Grandview. So we met at the police academy, and he was a bike rider as well, motorcycle. He had a Harley. I don't remember what model, uh, possibly a night train, but it doesn't matter. I had a 1700 Yamaha Roadstar, the big old cruiser,
Okay.
and I went over to his house early to help him install mini ape hangers on his handlebars on his bike. So we get those installed, and we went out riding all day long. Stopped, had lunch, went riding some more. Stopped, had dinner, went riding some more, and we finally split up for the night because he had to work a 24-hour shift the next day because he ended up leaving Grandview Police Department. He just didn't like it. Went back to being a paramedic for Kansas City Fire.
Okay.
So when we went riding, he was a paramedic. So he had to work a 24-hour shift the next day, and I was taking my ex-wife. She was my wife at the time. before we got divorced, and my 3 boys out to St. Louis to visit my uncle, Dwight, my favorite uncle. Uh, he bought me my first rifle. It was a 22 rifle. Uh, Lived out in Cedar Hill area of St. Louis. Anyway, I never made it home. There was an area of highway in the south part of Kansas City called the Grandview Triangle, and from the air it looks like a giant triangle. Uh, just a whole mess of highways converged on one area,
Mm.
And it's very confusing. People think they're on the exit for Interstate 435 when they're really on the 71 highway side. So they'll swerve over last minute, causing an accident. And that's
Mm.
what happened. Somebody swerved over on me, didn't see me, and I slammed on my brakes to miss them. And I jerked my handlebars to the left, went right in between 2 guardrails, ripping off one of my saddlebags. And I went into kind of a grassy median area, and I hit one of those big green highway signs that tell you which way to go.
Okay.
It wasn't one of the huge ones, but it was big enough. It was concreted into the ground.
Oh.
And so I hit it mostly with my body. My bike didn't get that much damage at all, but I hit it hard enough to break the sign. And the signpost that was sticking up out of the ground completely ripped my right leg off below the knee.
Oh.
Completely severed it. But my knee was so mangled, they had to take it above the knee. So it's about 7-8 inches above the knee now. Just past that sign, it slowed down another 20 feet or so. And that's where I landed, breaking a bunch of other bones. And I couldn't get back up to my bike to call for help. I didn't even know I was so much lower than my bike. Uh, my phone was on my bike. I was listening to some music. And it was probably close to being dead by that time anyway. But nobody could see me from the side of the road. And the person that, cut me off, they just kept on going.
Mm.
So nobody could see me. So I laid out there for 14 and a half hours before I was found.
Wow.
I was blessed, and it was middle of winter. This is December 9th, 2015, when my accident happened. That the temperature was, it snowed a couple days before we went riding, but it was a nice day that day. I was wearing just jeans and a t-shirt, and on the way home, I was wearing a denim shirt. One wearing a leather jacket. I had my leather jacket in my saddlebag, but it wasn't cold enough to wear it. Wearing a helmet, not a DOT approved helmet. I'll admit, just a little scully. I was wearing a ball cap and a stocking cap because it was a little colder by the time I was leaving or riding home. But if I'd been wearing a DOT approved helmet, I probably wouldn't have as much of a brain injury as I ended up receiving.
Mm.
Probably still some, but probably not as bad. Um, I did end up receiving a pretty heavy brain injury from that. But anyway, as I was laying down there in the ditch or the 20 feet lower, uh, I don't know if I was face up, face down, or on my side. I don't recall, uh, but I remember there being a bright light above me. And I remember distinctly thinking, that's strange, the street lights are on. But they would have been on because I was riding home at night.
Right.
And they would have still been on that next morning. But I remember distinctly thinking it was odd that the street lights are on. I don't know why, but I remember distinctly thinking that. But as I was going in and out of consciousness from all the blood I was losing, this light kept getting bigger and bigger.
Mm.
And before long, it was as big as the whole sky. I couldn't look in a direction and not see this light. And it was very beautiful, very peaceful, and very calming. But it was brighter than the sun. I've never experienced a light so bright. It was literally brighter than the sun, but it didn't hurt my eyes. And it felt like I was just wrapped in a warm blanket of love and peace. And I was calm. Wasn't in any pain. Um, and I was just surrounded by this light. And all of
Yeah.
a sudden, I see these 2 humongous gates, very tall. Can't even see the top of them. They're fairly narrow, but I can't see the top of them. They're about the width of a man's shoulders, or maybe twice two men's shoulders.
Okay.
Stand next to each other. So they're not very wide. But they were extremely tall. Like I said, I couldn't see the top of them, and they were open toward me, and I could see a figure just sitting inside those gates. And I remember thinking, "Holy crap, I'm getting ready to see Jesus." And as I get closer and closer to those gates, I see that they're no joke pearly gates. Uh, they're made of these giant pearls, um, all different shapes and sizes. Uh, some is the size of a bowling ball, but you know how a pearl has that very iridescent color sheen on it and
Yeah.
color shifting properties. It was like that, except on steroids. There was colors I've never seen before,
Mm.
and I've seen a lot of colors. I would have thought I've seen just about every color there is to see. My mom was an art teacher, uh, uh, high school and college art teacher, and so we did a lot of art growing up. We were homeschooled. I was homeschooled through my ninth grade year, and then a little before I was 14 when my dad. Well, I guess I was. My dad got cancer, and he ended up passing uh, when I was 14. I was. He passed July 7th, 1996, and uh, I knew I'd see him again someday, but I wasn't expecting it to be quite so soon.
Right.
Uh, this was 20 years later, uh, and he looked absolutely perfect.
Mm.
Though he was the my dad was the one that was in behind the inside the gates. It wasn't Jesus. It was my dad meeting me at the gate. He looked absolutely perfect. He was wearing a white robe, had his arms outstretched like he was waiting to hug me, and he just had, as I call it, this shitty grin on his face. Nobody had a smile like my dad. Um, he would light up a room with his smile. Everybody loved him for it. There were literally thousands of people that came to his funeral. Um, he was just the nicest guy. He would give you the shirt off his back if you needed it.
Mm.
He was just salt of the earth kind of guy. Had just this great laugh, uh, really good belly laugh, and when he was really laughing hard, he would slap his knee really hard,
Yeah.
and it was very iconic and very iconic of my dad, and that I got to see later on. Um, but anyway, so as I see my dad looking perfect, he wasn't overweight like he was before he got cancer, but he wasn't skin and bones like he was when he passed. He was literally 50 or 60 pounds when he died, with just skin and
Mm.
bones. But he didn't look like either one of those. So we kept getting closer very slowly, and I'm reaching up to grab him, and our fingertips got within an inch to an inch and a half of touching. And then everything went black. I mean, it was the darkest dark I've ever experienced. Darker than being in a cave where you can't even see your hand in front of your face.
Right.
And in that utter darkness, I felt an extreme shock through my whole body all at once. It wasn't a painful shock, but it was a definite electric shock. You know, I've been tased before in the police academy.
Yeah.
Because we got to know that, you know, if somebody gets a hold of your taser, you know, it's a life and death situation. You pull your gun and you shoot them. But it wasn't like getting tased, but it was definite electric shock. My chest jumped up and my back arched, and when it came back down, I could see a little bit of light, and I could make out two figures above me. Yeah, so I was in the uh, back of the ambulance, and they had shocked me with the defibrillator. At least once that I know of for sure, but I'm sure they had been shocking me, trying to bring me back.
Yeah.
Um, and my chest jumped up and back arched. And when it came back down, I could see a little bit of light, and I could make out two figures above me. I was in the back of the ambulance. Like I said, they had shocked me with the defibrillator. And then the paramedic close to my head turned to the third guy who was driving and said, "All right, we got him. Let's go." So I heard the sirens come on, which were very familiar to me being a cop.
Right.
And I felt pulled away from the side of the road, and I drifted back off into darkness. I was in my initial coma for 5.5 weeks.
Wow.
No signs of life at all. Machines were keeping me alive. I was on full life support, and they were keeping my blood pumping, my heart pumping, and my lungs breathing, everything. Um, Doctors came to my then wife, Jessica, at the time, on a Friday night and said, by Monday morning, you've got some tough decisions to make. You need to let us know whether or not to unplug them. So for my stepmom, I told her my stepmom, she was my best friend in high school. It's his mom. She just treated me like one of her kids. And so I just called her my stepmom.
Yeah.
They were in my ICU room praying and crying. And very early Monday morning, Dorothy, that's my stepmom, looked over at Jessica and said, did you see that? She said, yeah. And she thought she had just seen it in her. She's like, good. I thought I just willed it in my head and saw it in my head. And I just barely moved a finger, almost imperceptibly. But they saw it and they caught it. They went and got the doctors. And I came out of my coma just a couple days after that.
Huh. Yeah.
That was pretty amazing. And since then there's been a lot of therapy. I got home from I spent 4 months at uh, uh, the hospital in Kansas City. It was a Trauma One hospital, research hospital. That's the hospital I was born at. And then I spent 7 weeks up at Madonna Rehab Hospital up in Lincoln, Nebraska. And then I came home the day before Easter, 2016.
Wow, that was only about 10 years ago then, because
Yeah,
just past Easter.
It's been just over 10 years ago. My accident happened December 9th, 2015. So my 10-year mark was this last December 9th. So my live day is December 11th, or December 10th, excuse me. And came home from Madonna Rehab Hospital and had quite the accompanying, cops were escorting us home, which was pretty cool.
Wow, yeah.
Once we got into Kansas City or closer to Kansas City, like St. Joe, once we got into Missouri, we had, police escort home, and that was pretty cool. And then we had a lot of people at our house visiting, and we had a basement that I had planned on finishing. It was a split level home, and I had put up all the studs and did all the electrical work myself before my accident. And then
Okay.
my ex brother-in-law, he did a lot of contracting work and did countertops and stuff. So him and a good friend of his, which was one of my bandmates that I had when I had a band named Corduroy Emporium, came and helped finish the basement out and finished it into a room because we didn't know if I was going to be able to even go upstairs anymore.
Right.
Not having a leg anymore, just my condition. So they refinished the basement into a bedroom for us. And then, I was able to go upstairs and stuff, not only walk, but, if I didn't have my leg on, I'd just scoot up the stairs. And that's what I still do, if I'm not in my wheelchair, I'm just scooting around the house on my butt and on my arms. But usually this house now is the new house that we're in is big enough that, I can maneuver around with my wheelchair.
Yeah.
So it makes it a little quicker. Scooting around on my butt and on my arms, it's a little tiring around in this big old house.
Oh, I
It
bet.
takes me a while, especially if I got to go to the bathroom. I'm in bed. I better go right away. Start moving right away. Otherwise, it's going to take me a while to get there. But yeah, the God's afforded some amazing opportunities for me to do some amazing things. Like I was talking about the bull riding earlier.
Yeah.
I go surfing every week with a bunch of guys. In fact, Bobby, I met at the Adaptive Training Foundation. I talked about him earlier, I think. He got me, he's a Marine. He got shot up in Ramadi in 2004. But he was at the Adaptive Training Foundation trying to help make sure he didn't, have to lose his leg. Because he didn't want to lose his leg. He got shot in the foot. And he saw all the problems that, us people with amputations had, with blisters and all kinds of stuff like that. And he's like, I'm going to try and save my leg if I can. and he ended up just working out and saving his leg.
Hmm.
But he got me into surfing, and good group of guys, professionals that in the Dallas Fort Worth area that we meet every Thursday night and go surfing. In fact, tonight's a surfing night, but I, I took off so I could do this podcast with you. So I feel very, very honored to be listening to the podcast. Those of you
Yeah.
that are listening, because normally I'd be out on the lake surfing, but he's been incredible. Incredible group of guys, good Christian men that we just get together every Thursday night and surf Lake Louisville, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing and so much fun. Our brother Tyler Cooper, he's out of Cooper Clinics in Dallas. Uh, he's got the boat, and he takes us out every week, and it's just amazing. Uh, we're praying for Tyler right now. He's going through some leukemia right now, but with God's help, God's going to heal him, and just had a transplant yesterday, and so far everything's good and it's
Okay.
looking good. So we're praying that things, his body accepts it completely and doesn't reject it, and, so he gets healed from that. But
Okay. Hey, so, well, I mean, you've been sharing many of your stories, and before we go, is there anything you want to ask me about? Maybe my listeners need to know about me, or you want me to tell a story?
yeah, sure. Tell a story. Maybe that'll jog something in my mind for another story.
Okay. Well, I don't know. What kind of story do you want?
Um, let's see.
Uh, let's see. I got Marine Corps stories, Gunny stories. I got.
Yeah, give me a good Gunny story.
Well, okay. Well, this this is kind of a funny one. It wasn't funny for the Lance Corporal that day, but it was funny for me as a gunny. I'm sitting in my office. This is at, well, how long ago was this? It was probably 13 or 14 years ago when I was still in the Marine Corps, obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously to you, but to my listeners, yeah, 13 or 14 years ago, I was a gunny in charge of radio repair, and I had all these radio repairmen, Marines, that were working for me. And that particular day, almost everybody was gone. I don't know where they were gone to, maybe for safety brief or something. I don't know where everybody was gone to, but it was just me kind of manning the fort and taking care of the shop and this Lance Corporal. And he was supposed to be working on radio. And he comes up to me, and I'm sitting in my office at my desk, managing emails or trying to make work easier for them. And he comes up to me and says, "Hey, Gunny, I'm having a problem with my radio. I can't seem to figure it out." Well, I'm a little bit ornery sometimes, a little bit mischievous, as all gunnies should be,
That's right.
right? Like,
Absolutely.
that goes with
That's
being
part
a
of the
gunnery
job
sergeant.
description, I think.
And for my listeners, I don't think I've ever talked about the rank of gunnery sergeant before, but so I'll digress a little bit here, and I'll talk about it's a traditional rank from a time when there was boats on the ocean made of wood, and there was Marines that manned all the weapon systems on the boats for the Navy. And the gunnery sergeant was in charge of the cannons on the ship, battleship, or whatever it was, in charge of all the cannons, all the defensive and offensive measures. And the gunnery sergeant back then was in charge of the weapons. And now the gunnery sergeant isn't in charge of the weapons as much, not the big weapons. The Navy's in charge of their own weapons, but the gunnery sergeant rank was held on to, and it's a unique rank. No other branch has the rank of gunnery sergeant. It's technically the E7, the seventh rank of the enlisted rank structure, 7 out of 9. So you're kind of an upper level manager. You're just below being political, where my main
Yeah.
concern is taking care of my Marines and developing them into good people, good Marines, good at their job, taking care of their little problems, helping them with things like even as far as divorce and doing their job and what to do and what not to do when they're off for the weekend. and all of this stuff. And I also inspected their barracks rooms sometimes. So you go through and see the things that aren't quite clean, and you fail them so that they're on the weekend. All the fun things.
Actions.
All the fun things.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this particular day, I'm sitting there in the office, and this young Marine comes into me and, Gunny, I can't seem to fix my radio. Can you help? I'm like, I would love to, right? And I stand up and I come out there to the shop, out of my office, and I come over to his radio, and I think he really thought I was going to start working on it. But I sat there with my coffee cup firmly on my belly, right below my chest, where it goes. You learn in gunnery sergeant school. And I'm just sipping on my coffee. I'm like, let me tell you a story, Lance Corporal. I was like, back when I was a Lance Corporal, we had radio systems that were much different than these. We had alignment tools. We had to troubleshoot inside. Let me fast forward to his day. This radio system was hooked up to a computer by cable. It did all the work. Every once in a while, I'd tell him to turn a knob here or click something on or off over there, and it troubleshotted the whole thing. And so I regaled him with long lost tales of checking inputs, outputs, and DC bias, and Ohm's law, and pretty much anything labyrinthine I could come up with.
Right.
And I told him the story of Lance Corporal Evans and how when he couldn't troubleshoot the radio properly, he had to hold the 45-pound radio straight out in front of him with his arms fully extended for as long as possible. And when it started to drift down, and stories like that. When it started, and I'll tell you guys the stories too. You're listening to the podcast. So as the radio system that has two metal handles, it's all metal, I'm holding out in front of me as it starts to lower down after about 20 seconds, my corporal's like, get it back up. Get it back up. Also in the shop, there was handprints painted in yellow on the ground. And if I messed up on any of my paperwork or asked any questions of the NCOs, they would just tell me to go put my hands on the handprints, and I'd be doing push-ups. So they got tired, and they weren't doing push-ups. So I regaled him with long-lost stories of my Lance Corporalhood in the repair shop and how I couldn't ask anybody any questions or I'd get in trouble. I would whisper questions to another PFC or Lance Corporal on the bench, like, hey, how do you fill out the paperwork?
Right.
And they'd be like, let me look at it. And then they'd circle something or mark something and give it back to me. They'd been there longer than me. And anyway, that's the kind of environment, I was telling him stories. And he was like, well, Gunny, I don't know how any of that helps me fix the radio. And I was like, I don't know, maybe it'll help you figure that out. But I'm like, just don't you know how to look up the TM and, read the TM, see what the TM says, then come back to me. Maybe I'll help you some more. Well, eventually he figured out. I think he even came to ask me again with the TM, like, Gunny, what does this word mean? And then I was like, you know what? Actually, that reminds me of another story, Lance Corporal. And he was like, never mind, Gunny, I'll just go fix it. And, as I would predict, it was no more than 30 more minutes, and he was done fixing the radio. He figured it out on his own. And he learned, don't come talk to Gunny and bother Gunny with the stuff that's your job.
Right.
I mean, I had fun telling stories, and he seemed a little interested in my stories of old Corps.
Right.
This was, yeah. So there you go. There's a story, a Gunny story from, and every time I tell a Gunny a story, they exactly know how it's going to go. They're just like, so what did you do? I'm like, I told him a story of old Corps. That's good idea. That well executed. So, yeah, we give them the run around a little bit. I mean, actually, I guess when I evaluate it now as a counselor and as a retired Gunny, I'd say I taught him that he could do it on his own. He could grab the TM, he could go through the steps, he could wiggle and check, make sure he had all the cables on or whatever. I don't even know what he was doing wrong, but he figured it out. And he legitimately fixed it, and he brought me out there, and I QC'd it. I was like, yeah, this radio's fixed. So at the end of the day, the radio got fixed. the Lance Corporal got mentored and trained. And I didn't shame him. I didn't beat him
Right.
up. He didn't even have to hold a radio out in front of himself or do push-ups.
He just got to hear about you having to do it.
He just got to hear about me, which, the Lance Corporal me was happy to pass along the tale of my long lost woes and sorrows of the old Corps,
For
when
sure.
nobody cared to hear or to help me in any way at all. As a matter of fact, let me give you another little snippet. So I'd get my little paperwork done for fix my radio. I take it over to the corporal for him to look over. And I remember him still. If you're out there, Corporal Mobley, and if you ever hear this, thank you. He ripped up my paperwork and threw it back in my face and wouldn't even tell me what I did wrong. And I'd go back shaking, a little scared, and I don't even know. And then I would try and assemble it, put it back together with some Scotch tape, and show my fellow Lance Corporal, can you see what's wrong on here? Can you see what's wrong on here? Please help me. I'm struggling, and I'm tired, and my sweat is on the concrete. I paid all the costs, and the Lance Corporal, my fellow Lance Corporal, would look at me and say, I think you messed up on a serial number or whatever. And I'd be like, thank you. He was my roommate too. So kind of made sense. Yeah. Things changed quick in the Marine Corps.
Yeah. I got a gunnery sergeant story for you.
Oh, okay. I love it. Tell me. And then this will kind of be our last one.
All right. So one of my gunnery sergeants I had in Fallujah, Iraq, he was maintenance. And he just kind of oversaw our stuff, and, did what you did, drank his coffee and things like that, oversaw us. But he always kept up with us after we got out. He was a reservist, and I always kept up with him. He was a great guy, great leader, great leader of Marines, and we just clicked. We just got along really well. Well, he lives in Nebraska. I went up there to visit him a couple times. He rides motorcycles, and I rode my motorcycles.
Okay.
And took a couple trips up there to see him, riding with him a few times. He's in a club, Iron Order. Anyway, so when I was up at Madonna Rehab Hospital up in Lincoln, Nebraska, he would come see me every week.
Okay.
Sometimes twice a week. And it was awesome that he would come see me every week. I mean, like clockwork. No, I had another guy, just side point, from my church that he knew. He was also a Marine, actually. And he would bring me donuts from my favorite donut place in Kansas City called Donut King.
Okay.
Every week. Because, good cop has to love donuts. So he would bring me donuts every week up at Madonna Rehab. He'd drive all the way up to Lincoln, Nebraska, from Kansas City every week, without fail. But anyway, so my Gunny, I was having a bad day one day. Therapy. I didn't want to have I didn't want to do therapy. Didn't want to get out of my bed. I was mad at the world, mad at my ex. Well, she wasn't my ex at the time. But my wife, and I just wasn't doing training. My stepmom and her husband, Tom and Dorothy, they were up there. And I just was in a bad mood. Didn't want to train. Didn't want to do anything. And especially having a TBI, traumatic brain injury, there, certain things will trigger you and whatever. But Gunny got all up in my face, all drill instructor style, and started yanking on my beard, pulling on my beard, and telling me to, get my head out of my ass, kind of thing, and all drill instructor style, and it just kind of pissed me off a little bit. Well, he was off to the side. I mean, my right side. Well, I had to go to the bathroom. I had to pee. And I don't know. I don't remember if I said urinal. I probably did. But that was one of my trigger words. Or that was not my trigger word. But when you have a TBI, a lot of times you'll latch onto a word.
Right.
And you'll just say it all the time.
Okay.
And one of my words was urinal. So when I was in the hospital, I'd say urinal. Everybody was scrambling for a urinal for me to use so I could pee. Because they didn't, well, I was cathetered for a while, but when I woke up, I wasn't cathetered anymore. So I'd use the urinal. So whether or not I asked for one or not, I don't know. Probably did, but nobody was paying attention with it. Well, I was kind of messing with my blankets in front of me, over my junk, trying to move it, and people just thought I was being weird playing with my junk, with people in the room. But I was trying to get my covers off of me. I needed to pee. I didn't want to pee in my bed,
Right.
so I heard him talking off to the side, and I just leaned to the side and let it rip because I had to go so bad. I'd been holding it for a while,
Yeah.
and I just shot it as far as I could, aiming it toward his voice. And it didn't hit him directly, but it hit the wall next to him and probably splattered him a little bit. He got a little upset at that, and as I would too, because I've been pissed on many times being a cop. It's not fun, but he still come back and see me every time. That next week he came in, he poked his head in, he's like, "Hey, do I need to get my rain gear? I brought my rain gear with me. Do I need to get it off my bike?"
We're such good sports,
Exactly.
We're such good sports.
So he was cool about it, and even uh, first time he came and visited me down here in Texas, uh, I asked him to take me to the head. We went to a restaurant and we went to eat, and I told him, "I promise I won't piss on you this time. Please just take me to the bathroom, Gunny."
Yeah, it is a unique rank, and there's so much I loved about it. And I guess I'll probably have to talk about it on another podcast episode for sure. Depending if people are interested or not. But hey, it's my pod,
That's
and I
right.
can talk about what I want.
That's right.
So
if people don't want to listen to it, they can turn it off.
They're already not listening to it, so that's great. I'm one step ahead. No, I'm just kidding. Some of you guys are listening to it, and I have a few faithful followers that are listening to every episode when they come out now.
That's
so
awesome. That's awesome.
I'm feeling heard. But anyway, good. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely, my pleasure,
Nate. It was so much fun, and thank you. It was so good to hear your stories again, and I want to thank all you listeners out there, the ones that are taking the time, being patient with me, and just enjoying the guests that are on my show and the real conversations we're having. I want to add a little levity today. I want to add a little listening. I want to add a little gratefulness, just because I want your day to be better.
That's right.
For you to be a little happier, maybe be a little nicer sometimes. And but thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.